Tell me how you learn. That's the motto of our video series in which people share their personal experiences, tips and insights on learning.
My social media is the place where people contribute their code, their ingenuity and creativity and design for the common good.
Hello, our guest today via Skype from Taiwan, Audrey Tang. Audrey has quite an unusual CV. School dropout, early adopter of the internet, serial entrepreneur, squatter, and today she's minister without portfolio. Many people call her the digital minister of Taiwan because she's mainly responsible for Taiwan's successful digital strategy to keep COVID-19 down. If there has been one constant in Audrey's life, it's self-learning and
I learned by listening very carefully and deeply to people, hopefully as different as possible from my initial position. This is what I call take all the sides. I've been learning like that since I dropped out of the middle school when I was 14 years old.
At the age of 14 or 15, Audrey already wrote scientific papers and did cutting-edge research. No one of her counterparts thought that they were communicating with a teenager. Audrey was in heaven because she could do what she loved most. Research in the field of the Gutenberg and later in the archive ARX IB project. Luckily, she had a principal who let her go.
Without the head of the school's blessing, it would be illegal to not show up at school, exam or not. But to answer your question, no, I did not need to pass exams because at the time I already had won a few science fairs and so on, which guarantees me like advanced placement in senior high or even in future schools. And so, yeah, it's a conscious decision to learn from the people on the internet. But of course, I also attended quite a few other universities classes without requiring a degree or a diploma from them. So the exams are quite besides the point. It's been besides the point since I won the first science fair thing back when I was 13 or so.
Yeah. So, I mean, digital is basically your learning basis. Mm-hmm. Do you have some kind of favorite formats?
Well, I'm deeply influenced by the GitHub community. And before there was a GitHub, I also worked on a version control system called SVK, invented by my friend, CL Gao, which enabled the same kind of decentralized version control. And before that, of course, we work on many other GitHub-like systems, such as Open Foundry and so on. So I would say that whatever the free software open source communities use to do their work, that's my social media. My social media is the place where people contribute their code, their ingenuity and creativity and design for the common good. So I would say the internet itself is my favorite tool.
And is there any kind of tool you would say we can get rid of, we don't need in the digital world?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the main things that we don't need is this idea that you have to make linear progression on any particular field of study before moving on trans-cultural or interdisciplinary study. The internet enabled us to connect to many different fields at once. So instead of saying you have to finish an undergrad degree in this and then master degree in that and so on, these tools of linear progression, I think we can do without and become kind of anti-disciplinary or transdisciplinary by default.
So as you are, I'm sure, for very many people, some kind of advisor, not only in your role as minister, but also, you know, in the digital world.
Yes.
From your perspective, what kind of mistakes would you apologize that a student does?
All sorts of mistakes, as long as they don't violate the law of physics. That's very difficult.
And when you look at a coach or a trainer, What kind of mistakes would you apologize for them?
A lot of the coaches or trainers seem to see the pupil or the student as somehow receiving from them a lecture format or something. And I think this unidirectionality, instead of saying, let's learn to create something together, many people still take a literacy viewpoint where the student, of course, needs to understand, to comprehend, maybe offer some critical thinking and so on. But still, it's a unidirectional, somebody teaches and somebody receives worldview. And my favorite model is instead a competence framework where the student is a co-creator. They are maybe less versed in the art of creation in that field, but still, in order to truly learn the subject, they must be able to create their own narratives, their own media, their own digital content, and so on. And so peer-to-peer learning together, I think that's the way to go. And one-directional, lecturer or receiver literacy model, I think that's very last century.
Where do you see the way digital learning in schools and, so to speak, in society is moving forward?
Well, first of all, I think universal broadband access should be a human right. It is a human right in Taiwan. So no matter where you are in Taiwan, and on the top of Taiwan, you're guaranteed unlimited data. That's at least 10 megabits per second at just 16 euros per month. If you don't, it's my fault. And so because of that, people do not see video conferencing as a luxury. People do not see that access to health or access to learning online is somehow a premium. Instead, people just use video conferencing all the time, regardless of whether they're in urban or rural settings. That's the basic situation. So universal broadband access in conjunction with the kind of competence, not literacy-based learning, I think that is what really needs to happen. And indeed, during the COVID, we've seen the places where they've got these two right, they actually managed to keep learning during the pandemic. And the places where it's not, well, did not.
What kind of color would you associate with learning?
Transparent.
Excuse me?
Transparent. Yes. Yeah. To learn is to let go a little bit of my original position and to blend a little bit to become more transparent. And let the new ideas, the new studies, the new knowledge and emotions enter me, right? And to do so is to become a container, in which case I take a little bit of the color of the incoming color. But in order to do so, I need to first let go of a little bit of the opacity and become more transparent.
If you think about the animal world, from what kind of animal would you like to learn what?
I would like to learn from Homo sapiens, the human animal, the art of working together for wisdom, because sapiens means wisdom.
Thank you, Audrey Tang. And thank you for leading by example and showing us that co-creation and transparency are important pillars for learning, especially when we focus on learning societies. Thanks for watching our video. See you again in our next episode of Tell Me How You Learn.